The Chinese are not propagating. Line of our party, the correct. Volume 19 of my works has been printed and distributed in many languages. The whole foreign world, friends and enemies of Albania, are talking about the correct line and courage of our party in its exposure of the Khrushchevite revisionists, and the struggle it has waged against them in defense of the purity of Marxism-Leninism, and in particular, in defense of the Communist Party of China. In China alone, nothing has been or is being said, and neither has any organ of the press come out to say anything, even if only to announce that such a work has been published in Albania. The Central Committee of the PLA and the Presidium of the People's Assembly published the text of the new draft constitution of the People's Republic of Albania. Abroad, everybody is still talking about it and analyzing it publicly. In China alone, this event of such importance to our country, this document of our party and the Albanian state, of such political, ideological, organizational, and constitutional importance has not been mentioned at all. What is written in the Chinese press about our country is worthless. First of all, the press there does not forget to reprint the good things that are said in our country about China, while the other news amounts to banal accounts. This meeting was held. That rally was held. So and so spoke there. So and so spoke here. So and so arrived in Albania. So and so left Albania. They also publish sports news. But there is never mention that less than this or that delegation of this or that Marxist-Leninist Communist Party went to Albania. This is the level to which China has reduced its political and ideological relations with our country. This is what is happening in the press and propaganda, while the political and ideological discussions between our two parties have long been reduced to absolute zero. Not even the slightest exchange of views about events in the world takes place. In regard to economic relations and aid to the army, these two have been reduced to the absolute minimum. Despite this, in appearance the Chinese are bluffing and want to show that Albania is their loyalist ally. What significance should we place on these stands? Can the explanation be that the Chinese have been informed by their people with delay? This does not hold water because we are not dealing with minor things, but with important events and materials of our country and party. Then, besides the Xinhua representatives in Tirana, every week there is the aircraft from Tirana to Peking and back, and China also has an embassy in Tirana. Can it be that the Chinese need time to translate and study our materials? This does not hold water either, because they have a battalion of translators and we are not asking them to publish any articles and make any comments on these events, but simply to publish a simple news item, from which the Chinese public will learn that these documents have been published in Albania. Then why are they acting in this way? What is going on? There is no explanation other than this. There is sabotage from the Chinese side. They are not in agreement with the political line of our party. The Chinese talk about less than dictatorship of the proletariat, and we are fighting for that too. They speak against the Soviet Union, but what is volume 19 all about? And what are we doing every day? In that case, why do they not at least publish the news that these documents have come out? What is the explanation to this Chinese puzzle? They do not want to propagate the correct line of our party for these reasons. A, because their false stand emerges. B, because the megalomania of the big party and great state exists. C, because they are not in agreement with our Marxist-Leninist line, either in theory or in practice. Therefore, if they propagate the correct line of our party, the confrontation will automatically become obvious. D, because the Chinese formulas and slogans are allegedly Marxist. E, because they want us to curry favor with them, to speak and act the same as they do. The Chinese do not accept the principled Marxist-Leninist stand of our party. They want us to become their servile minions. This, naturally, will never occur. Because they did not like the internal measures which we took against the enemies of the party and state Bakir Baluku, Hito Kako, Pitrit Doom, Abdel Khalazi, etc. Why? To what extent did the Chinese have a finger in their plot? One thing we do know, the Chinese comrades like the line of the traitors of our country. G, because the Chinese want to drive us from our Marxist-Leninist positions, want us to unite with the traitors Tito and Ceausescu, and to throw us into the revisionist cesspool. Naturally, we have condemned these anti-Marxist and capitulationist views of theirs. I have posed all these things as questions many times and have given some explanations of them. I have tried to be objective and correct in my analyses regardless of the very strong terms I have sometimes used. But I think that things must be called by their proper names. Analyzing the facts on this question, it seems to me that the main thing which should be examined in this Chinese puzzle is this. Is the Communist Party of China on the correct Marxist-Leninist road? Has it been on such a road? Is it on the organizational road of a party of the Leninist type as Marx, Engels, and Lenin teach us? Not to mention Stalin, whom the Chinese have always been against. The Chinese speak pro-Stalin because there is nothing else they can do, since at one time they took a stand in connection with this question, and for the sake of form they put Stalin in opposition to Khrushchev. Of course, I cannot claim to know the Communist Party of China in its development and organization. However, my opinion is that this party did not take its initial step correctly, on the Marxist-Leninist road, on the Leninist principles, whether on organization or the various problems which it had to face and solve, either in the bourgeois democratic revolution or later, in its fusion with the Kuomintang, in the Civil War, in the anti-Japanese war, on the role of the working class and on the role of the peasantry. Hence, on all these problems of primary importance I think that the party of China has proceeded in a chaotic manner. We see that until Mao came to the leadership of the party, deviations and factions like those of Li Lisan, Wang Ming, etc., appeared in its organization, ideology and practice. Of course, such things occurred in the party of Lenin too. The enemies attacked the Bolshevik party from within and from without, but Lenin acted against them with clear Marxist ideology and an iron hand. He tempered the party and gave it the immortal norms which guide and will always guide the genuine Marxist-Leninist parties and the revolution in the world correctly. I believe that when Mao came to power he established some sort of order, created and led the army in the war, but in the organization of the party and its stands, neither the Leninist basic principles nor the Leninist norms were properly established. The Communist Party of China built up its reputation, but it needed to temper itself in the long years of war and the post-war period. First of all, Mao's views, from the start down to the present day, about the hegemony of the working class and its alliance with the peasantry are not in accord with the Marxist-Leninist theory. In this direction his views are liberal, regardless of the slogans, and I think that here we have the source of the vacillations in the line of the Communist Party of China and Mao. As theory and practice teach us, these are the vacillations of the petty bourgeoisie, of the peasantry. The peasantry played a truly great role in the National Liberation War, both in China and in our country, but in China it was not guided by the ideology of the working class as it was here. In our country the working class was not dominant in numbers, it was very small, but its ideology was great. This means that our party was organized on a Leninist basis and put the working class in a position to exert its hegemony. In China, however, while it is true that the Communist Party was formed, the view that less than the countryside must encircle the city greater than predominated. It was inevitable that weak organizational links of the party would result from this, that the party norms would only be partly established, and that a series of factions and anti-Marxist deviations would flourish in its ranks, as they did, irrespective of the fact that the Li Lisans and Wang Mings were overthrown. Thus I think the Communist Party of China went to war not properly organized. It did not have a clear line and could not play the true role of the vanguard. This party grew up with factions and continued with factions, both leftist and rightist. The army and the war covered up these dangerous illnesses, and the factionists gathered under the leadership of less than warlords greater than. But this time they were commanders of armies and communists, according to the ideas of the Communist Party of China. The party existed, but the army was so all-powerful that it must be considered that it was not commanded by the party, but that the party was commanded by it instead. All these outstanding and courageous commanders called themselves communists, but they understood communism according to the inaccurate and vacillating views and orientations of their party. In his wartime writings Mao deals with many party questions correctly. The cadres were educated with them, but to what extent and how they were educated is another matter, the consequences of which were to appear later. The main military leaders, headed by Mao, were in the leadership both during the war and after the war, and this was a natural thing. Together with them, not only people who had fought in the war, but others too came into the leadership of the party and the new state. This election was allegedly carried out in party forms, but in fact each leader brought with him more of his own men than men imbued in the party spirit. After the war, Great China had to be organized as a state. But what sort of state? A state of people's democracy, but its red flag had 4 stars which represented the 4 classes of the Chinese society, and another star in the middle of them. Whose hegemony did this star represent? Of the working class it was said, but the economic, political, and organizational reforms which were carried out did not proceed in this direction, because the party itself was not monolithic. Ideological unity did not exist in its ranks, but unity around Mao. The capitalists continued to exist as a class in this state, and even to receive rent. Under the banner of Mao, Liu Shaoqi took control of the state and the party. Teng Xiaoping ran the party while Chu the state. Mao was the pivot around which everything rotated. The army was in the hands of Marshal Peng Dehuai. This powerful group maneuvered as it liked. There was talk of socialism, but movement was towards revisionism. Peng Dehuai was so untrammeled that he manipulated the army on the Khrushchevite road, adopting all its psychological, political material, and organizational features. Liu, with Peng Dehuai and Teng Xiaoping, prepared the counter-revolution. Peng Dehuai was dismissed from the Central Committee, and his comrade Lin Piao took his place. New reforms, quite the opposite of the former ones, were carried out in the army, and these were done by Mao. The army was always the pillar, allegedly because Mao had it under his personal direction. Liu Shaoqi had the party, while Chu Enlai was the opportunist moderator from the time he was born to the time of his death. The struggle for power flared up. But how? With opportunist slogans beginning from that of 100 flowers, that is, permitting all ideologies and factions in the party, the less than, Struggle against the opera in the university, down to everything must march in step with the army, and thus Lin Piao became the all-powerful savior. Liu Shaoqi saw the danger and tried to topple Mao, as Brezhnev did to Khrushchev. Mao also recognized the danger and raised the Red Guards in their millions. The Cultural Revolution began without the leadership of the party, without the working class. Liu acted too. The rebels and various organizations emerged. Anarchy was reigning in China. The party was liquidated. The mass organizations were liquidated, and then civil war between the factions began. Imagine what sort of a communist party that of China was. Then Mao called on Lin Piao, whom he covered with titles, to give the order to the army to intervene, and the army did so. Liu Shaoqi and some main leaders like Teng Xiaoping were eliminated by this cultural revolution. What became of the former is not known, while Teng was less than. Re-educated and now, as though nothing had happened, the number 2 enemy of China is back to the positions he had before. During the Cultural Revolution, Lin Piao became the less than warlord. He made the law, he published and distributed the less than little red book, the Maoist Bible, and produced the Mao badges, while Chen Po Ta made the speeches. The army predominated over the party and the state. The less than revolutionary committees were created and did what Lin Piao told them. Lin was cooking something up for himself, made preparations to blow up Mao and to link China with the Soviet Union, so they say. Mao maneuvered, toppled Lin Piao, and together with Chiu, directed the aerials towards the United States of America, the European Common Market, United Europe, Franco, and Pinochet, and declared China a member of the LTLT Third World GT, together with Spain, Egypt, Chile, Yugoslavia, Turkey, etc., etc. What conclusions can we draw from this brief, rather incomplete lineup of these events which have occurred in the Communist Party of China? Its own leadership says that there are 2 lines in the Communist Party of China. It accepts their existence, and it seems to me makes it a condition for the existence of the party, and calls it the class struggle in the party. However, I think that there are not just 2 lines in this party, but many lines which are clashing with one another for power. The party is chaotic and does not wage a class struggle on sound Marxist-Leninist revolutionary principles, or, to put it better, the party does not wage the class struggle at all, but a struggle of clans goes on within it. The clans are in the party and the state, at the base and in the leadership. All the supporters of factionists who have allegedly been condemned can be found within the party and are operating. All this development has been and is being carried out in the name of Mao, who is being made a taboo. His quotations are learned, but each faction is going about its own business on the quiet. Mao himself permits the less than 2 flowers, if not 100 flowers. Less than let there be 2 or 3 factions and let them coexist, he says. Less than then we shall make a revolution each 7 years and shall see who will triumph. If the rightists win, the leftists will rise and overthrow them. This is less than the brilliant theory of Mao. And in fact, this is what has occurred. From the time Mao emerged in the leadership of the Communist Party of China, Li Lisan was overthrown, Wang Ming rose, and he was overthrown. And then Liu Shaoqi and Lin Piao were raised and overthrown. Only Chu Enlai died in power. But how will things go now? Mao is still working in the same way. At present, China has no premier. The functions of the head of government are carried out by Teng Shi, who is also chief of the general staff. But we know who he is. As a political leader confronting Teng stands Chang Chenchao, and in the place of the minister of defense, because there is still no minister, there is an old man who leans more towards the trend of Chu Enlai, while heading the economy without being at the head, stands Li Xiannian, the most faithful supporter of Chu, of Teng, of Lin Piao, of Mao, of all of them, but never of Marxism-Leninism. This is the state of affairs in the leadership of the Communist Party of China, not to speak of lower levels. There you have less than leftists, rightists, moderates, whatever you want. All of them claim to follow the line of Mao. And in fact, they are obliged to follow it because they are afraid of the blows they might receive during the factional struggle, but this will break out if not right now, as soon as Mao dies. The squabbles have already begun. The Minister of Education is a revisionist. He is not in order, etc. The campaign against Liu has been toned down. The campaign against Lin Piao and Confucius is now on the order of the day. How long will this continue? Is it being reduced? 2 verses by Mao were published and a great fuss was made about them. What emerges from these verse parables? One cannot make head or tail of them. As usual, they continue to speak in a disguised way, and one needs an interpreter of the Holy Writ to explain them, as Lin Piao did in his time. An article, which is not bad, has been written about the dictatorship of the proletariat. The drum continues to beat against the Soviet revisionists, and on the other hand, the American imperialist policy is supported. The question arises, who is predominant in all this? The leftists, Chang Qing, Chang Chunqiao, Wang Hongwen, and Yao Wenyuan, or the rightists, with Teng and his gang, or the moderates, opportunists, and revisionists like Chu and his circle? Nothing at all can be determined precisely. China is carrying on less than be its own inertia. It is said to be growing strong economically and militarily. But we cannot say that things are going well ideologically and politically. The Chinese people are courageous, intelligent, industrious, but politically and ideologically they are not being led on the right road. They say that the leftists are dominant in the leadership, but we do not see any obvious change in the policy of the party and the state. It is said that the supporters of Lin Piao are in large numbers, and this may be true. They say also that Chu Enlai did not have much support apart from that of Mao. Some say that Teng's men are taking power, while others say that Lin's men are taking power. But who to believe or to disbelieve? One has to decide everything from their policy, ideology, and actions. About both one side and the other, it is precisely these things that are enigmatic and unclear. What does this show? In my opinion, this shows that the Communist Party of China does not have a correct Marxist-Leninist line, that there are currents, factions, and vacillations within it, and no stability, because there is no Marxist-Leninist unity of thought and action. The party is not effectively in command. The army is going ahead, but it is not under the command of the party. The economy is going ahead, but likewise not under the command of the party. A policy is being carried out, but not guided by the party and not on the Marxist-Leninist road. The people, the groups and factions working under the umbrella of Mao run things clash, and what they say today they don't say tomorrow. Hence, no one knows what the future of China will be, what tomorrow will bring. Where is China going, where will it go, and how will it go? This is not known. As I have said at other times, in this situation, this state of affairs is dangerous to the revolution, world peace, and socialism. The stands of China towards our party and People's Republic are explicable. We do not budge from our correct positions because we are guided by Marxism-Leninism, while the stands of the Chinese towards us are vacillating. The rank-and-file people in China love us, speak well of us, while the leadership has been shifty in its stands. At one stage it spoke well of us, then it did not speak at all, and now it has thrown out the friendship with us. It is self-evident that these stands towards us are neither principled nor Marxist-Leninist explanation. Could the Chinese leaders change? Could we have less than blue skies later? Anything can happen with the Chinese. We are vigilant and defend our party, its Marxist-Leninist line and the Republic. We are working and will work for the revolution.